On the 5th day of Hanukkah, students and staff at North Shore Hebrew Academy, a K-12 Jewish private school in New York, woke up to see that their school website had been hacked. Nazi propaganda was plastered across the screen, autoplaying a song playing, "Let the Jews Die." And the school had been renamed North Shore Concentration Camp. This attack, while mortifying, is not unique. The Anti-Defamation League explained in their annual May report that acts of anti-Semitism last year reached their highest level since tracking began in 1979. The previous administration tried to tackle this burgeoning issue. Jewish Insider, September 2020, notes that Trump issued an executive order including anti-Semitism as a form of discrimination prohibited by federal law under Title VI of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which prevents universities from receiving federal funding if they discriminate on the basis of race, color, or national origin. This decree from the Donald, while seemingly beneficial, surreptitiously defines Jewish people by their ethnicity, and more importantly, nationality, echoing decades of anti-Semitic rhetoric. Even though Trump's presidency has ended, the Biden administration has offered no stance on the federal definition, meaning it will continue to stand. Troubling, because The Guardian on November 29, 2020 furthers that a group of 122 journalists and scholars have united to warn that this executive order will be deployed mostly against left-wing and human rights groups while ignoring the very real threat to Jews coming from the right-wing, white nationalist movement. Thus, it is vital that we examine the causes, effects, and solutions of this malicious executive order. Because the Civil Rights Act should be used as a tool to prevent discrimination, not cause it. Trump's definition of anti-Semitism was taken from the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, or IHRA. The Michigan Daily, in January 2020, explains that the definition is intentionally broad, including not only acts of physical violence, but rhetorical violence, such as criticism of the Israeli state. This definition was implemented for two reasons: to conflate anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism, and to rebrand criticism of universities. First, the definition treats anti-Zionism, the opposition of Israel as an ethno-state, and anti-Semitism, the opposition of Jews as a people, as synonymous. They aren't. Jewish News Syndicate in November 2020 explains that this difference, while seemingly insignificant, is the exact reason that this executive order was adopted. President Trump and the Republican Party have long expressed political loyalty to the state of Israel, and as such, the goal is to protect Israel by making any critique of their actions be viewed as a form of bigotry. Hence, why in October 2020 Inside Higher Education article writes that this definition means that students are punished or labeled as harassers for making clearly political arguments about Israel, Palestine, and the slew of adjacent issues relevant to the historical conflict. Second, this definition justifies an attack on universities. That's not even my opinion, because according to Verso Books of January 2020, Trump literally said, "Today we're delivering a strong message to the professors trying to suppress dissent and keep Americans from challenging far-left ideology." The previous Verso Books explains that the order justifies these attacks on higher education and its alleged left-wing indoctrination as a high-minded pursuit of civil rights. Moreover, the definition coddles college Republicans, white nationalists, and Zionist students on campus under the guise of freedom of speech. The right wing has historically been at odds with the typical left-lean ivory tower. The calculated logic of this definition is clear. Mobilize the language of social justice to undermine those who need it and embolden those who don't. Kenneth Stern, who authored the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, argued that it's being started not to protect Jews, but to suppress free speech. There are two effects: normalizing Judeophobia and going after human rights organizations. Although Executive Order 13899 was titled Combating Anti-Semitism, it ironically does the opposite. To act like criticisms of Israel are the biggest problem impacting Jewish Americans makes casual political observers believe that Judeophobia is being solved. Yet the Claims Conference in September 2020 released a survey and found 63% of Americans don't know that 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust, with 11% of them blaming Jews for causing it. This is taking place while MIT in November 2020 points out that Jewish Americans make up 2% of the US population, but almost 58% of the FBI's religiously biased hate crimes. This executive order frames Jewish people as a racial monolith and echoes the same conspiratorial thinking that normalizes this rise in anti-Semitic violence. Second, this reclassification has tangible consequences for colleges and human rights organizations. UC Davis professor Sunaina Mayer argued that the ambiguous definition of anti-Semitism has been used to shut down boycott, divestment, sanctions, or BDS campaigns related to the Israeli government's treatment of Palestinians. Moreover, if universities don't do anything about BDS activists, they expose themselves to the loss of millions in funding. But this isn't just a hypothetical. The Middle East Studies Association in February 2020 articulates that NYU and UCLA already have faced allegations. But if that wasn't bad enough, Politico in November 2020 wrote that the definition could be used to label Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, and Oxfam as anti-Semitic. Ultimately, this new definition of anti-Semitism demonizes the exact groups fighting for the causes that this executive order supposedly cares about. As the last generation of Holocaust survivors die, it's vital that we understand what we can do to keep their legacy alive, even when they no longer are. There are two solutions: what the government can do and what we can do. First, the government can help eradicate this issue by removing the IHRA definition and replacing it. The federal government needs to establish precedents that Jews are not a nationality and that anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism. This can be done by adopting Erwin Kotler, a Canadian human rights law professor's definition of anti-Semitism, which is the discrimination against, denial of, or assault upon the rights of Jews to live as equal members of whatever society they inhabit. I have created a change.org petition to demand that the Biden administration makes this change. Please write your email on my ballot, and I will personally make sure that the petition arrives in your inbox. Second, we need a more concentrated effort to solve this, and everyone watching this speech can help. We wouldn't be needing to have this discussion if people understood the frequency and severity of anti-Semitism. As trite as it may seem, Jew are the solution. J is joining forces with the Anti-Defamation League. The ADL has some outstanding resources on their website that detail the current climate for American Jews and how pervasive anti-Semitism is. E is for educate the masses. In conversations about oppression, systemic discrimination, and bigotry, make sure to include Jewish folk in that discourse. Talking to Jewish people you know can help, and I promise, we won't hurt you with our wildfire lasers. W is We Resolve, a nonprofit created by the Philo Project to incorporate other faiths in the fight against anti-Semitism. Check out hashtag We Resolve and get involved on social media to tackle Judeophobia. With both legal and interpersonal solutions, Jew have the ability to truly make a difference for millions of people like me. Look, definition changes may seem insignificant, but our word choices have consequences. This executive order is a piece of a bigger conversation regarding the plight of American Jews, and we've seen through the causes, effects, and solutions why this conversation needs to take place. North Shore Hebrew Academy was eventually able to reclaim its website with the student body safe and sound. Hopefully, if we can redefine the meaning of anti-Semitism, then we will give those students a Hanukkah present. that will last the rest of their lives.